Welcome to Black Pine Tales, where we delve into the shadows of the unexplained. Tonight, we journey into the heart of Greywood Forest, a place shrouded in a perpetual mist, where the very air seems to hold its breath. For generations, this ancient woodland has guarded a chilling secret, a mystery whispered only in hushed tones. The strange disappearances that plague its deepest reaches. What ancient force lies dormant beneath the gnarled roots and damp earth, silently claiming those who ventured too close? What dark hunger stirs within the mist? And what stories does it truly crave? Long before written history, the Greywood Forest was a place of reverence and fear. Ancient peoples, whose names are now lost to time, discovered a unique geological formation deep within its heart. They didn't merely find it. They augmented it, shaping the natural stones with an unknown purpose, weaving their own beliefs and rituals into its very structure. This was no ordinary monument, but a locus of power, a silent altar to something far older than humanity itself. As centuries turned into millennia, local communities grew around the forest's edge. They developed rich oral traditions, their lives intertwined with the mysteries of the Greywood. Around campfires, under the watchful eyes of the ancient trees, stories were born and passed down. Tales of hunts, of spirits, of the forest's unpredictable moods. These narratives, imbued with the teller's emotions, began to awaken something dormant within the augmented stones. Then came the first recorded disappearance. A storyteller, renowned for their captivating narratives, vanished near the ancient stones, leaving behind only an unfinished tale, a narrative abruptly severed. The community was gripped by a terror that transcended mere loss. It was as if the story itself had consumed the teller, pulling them into its very fabric, a chilling precedent for the horrors yet to come. This initial disappearance wasn't an isolated incident. Over generations, a pattern emerged. Storytellers, particularly those recounting tales of fear or unexplained vanishing, would themselves disappear near the cairn. The stones became a place of dread, a forbidden zone. Local taboos and superstitions solidified, warning all against speaking certain stories or even approaching the ancient formation, especially as dusk fell. Despite the warnings, the allure of shared fear proved too strong for some. At the forest's edge, a group known as the Hollow Grove Collective began to gather. They met under the cloak of night, drawn together by a shared fascination with ghost stories and local legends. Unbeknownst to them, their fervent narrations, their intense emotional investments in each chilling tale, were not merely entertainment. They were offerings, unknowingly feeding the very entity the ancient taboos sought to appease or avoid. Into this tapestry of ancient dread and modern curiosity stepped Alara Vance, a seasoned investigator, driven by a scientific curiosity that bordered on obsession. Alara arrived in the Greywood. Her mission: to unravel the growing number of unsolved cases and strange disappearances that had begun to draw national attention. She sought logic, patterns, and empirical evidence where others saw only folklore and fear. Alara's approach was methodical, precise. She wasn't interested in ghost stories, but in data. Her initial surveys of the Greywood Forest were exhaustive, mapping out the areas of frequent disappearances, noting environmental anomalies, and interviewing the few locals willing to speak about the forbidden zone. She sought to demystify, to categorize, to bring the cold light of science to what felt like a primordial darkness. Alara's investigation entered its first critical phase: the deployment of remote monitoring equipment, high-tech sensors, audio recorders, and thermal cameras were strategically placed around the Whispering Cairn. She believed the answers lay not in old wives' tales, but in the subtle fluctuations of the environment, the unheard frequencies, the unseen energies. Almost immediately, the equipment began to register anomalies. Audio recordings, seemingly mundane, contained a low, almost subliminal, multi-layered whisper track beneath all other sounds. It was faint, indistinct, yet undeniably present. A chorus of countless voices, speaking in a language no one could decipher. A constant hum beneath the silence of the Greywood. Beyond the whispers, the sensors picked up inexplicable environmental changes. Sudden drops in temperature, localized pockets of profound stillness where no wind dared to stir, and strange energy readings that defied conventional explanation. These shifts were not random. They correlated precisely with the times when, miles away, the Hollow Grove Collective would gather, sharing their terrifying stories. The data painted a disturbing picture. The Whispering Cairn, far from being a passive stone formation, was reacting. It was alive, in a sense, responding to the narrative energy, to the fear and emotional investment pouring into the stories told in its vicinity. The whispers and environmental shifts were its subtle exhalations, its preliminary stirrings. As Alara delved deeper, the phenomena intensified, moving beyond mere data points into unsettling, tangible experiences. The cairn was no longer just a subject of study. It was becoming an active participant, subtly blurring the lines between observer and observed, between the scientific and the supernatural. The second phase of her investigation would prove far more personal, far more terrifying. Driven by a need to understand the source of the whisper track, Alara decided to conduct a direct experiment. She sat near the cairn, her recorder running, and began to narrate a regional legend, a chilling tale of a lost traveler in the Greywood. She poured her intellect and her own subtle unease into the story, unknowingly providing the very emotional investment the cairn craved. As her voice echoed through the cold, heavy air, a profound shift occurred. Alara felt a fleeting, tactile manifestation, a momentary brush against her hand, like cold, damp fabric, or the phantom grip of a twig. Yet nothing was there. The air around her grew heavy, thick with an unseen presence. It was gone as quickly as it came, leaving her with a chilling certainty. The stories were indeed coming to life. Meanwhile, miles away, a member of the Hollow Grove Collective was deep in a particularly vivid ghost story, their voice filled with dramatic intensity. They were closer to the cairn than usual, drawn by the primal thrill of fear as they reached the tale's climax. A brief, dark, humanoid distortion flickered in the swirling mist nearby. It was gone in an instant, a shadow given momentary form, a terrifying echo of their own narrative. The following morning, a new phenomenon appeared around the Whispering Cairn. Delicate, pale, bioluminescent fungi, unlike any local species, sprouted from the ancient stones. The disappearance bloom, as Alara would later name it, glowed with a faint, ethereal light for precisely 24 hours before withering away. It was a macabre indicator, a grim marker of the cairn's recent nourishment, a sign that another story had perhaps claimed its teller. And then there were the story seeds, small, crystalline fragments resembling petrified wood, sometimes appeared embedded in the moss and dirt around the stones after powerful narrative events. When held, they vibrated with a faint internal light, pulsing with a residual energy. These weren't mere rocks. They were narrative echoes made manifest, fragments of stories given physical form, a chilling testament to the cairn's power. Alara, surrounded by her data, her unsettling experiences, and the growing evidence, began to piece together the horrifying truth. The Whispering Cairn did not possess inherent, malevolent intent. It was not a sentient evil. Instead, it operated as an amplifier, a manifester of narrative energy. Its hunger was not a conscious malice, but a consequence of its ancient function, a primal need to sustain its role as a nexus between story and reality. The disappearances weren't random acts of violence or supernatural abductions in the traditional sense. They were a localized consumption, a terrifying inversion of storytelling. The individual telling a sufficiently potent, emotionally charged story, particularly one of fear or vanishing, was physically drawn into their own narrative. They didn't just tell the story, they became part of it, absorbed into its unfolding reality, leaving only an unfinished tale and a bioluminescent bloom. Greywood Forest, with its perpetual mist and muffled sounds, was not merely a backdrop. It was an integral part of the mechanism, contributing to the cairn's isolated and uncanny atmosphere. The cold, heavy air, the scent of damp earth, pine resin, and that faint, metallic tang, all enhanced the psychological impact of storytelling, thinning the veil between the tangible and the imagined. Alara realized that direct physical interaction with the cairn's stones did not trigger its activity. It was not a cursed object to be touched or avoided. The activation mechanism was purely narrative, a potent cocktail of proximity, emotional investment, and the specific content of the story being told. The ancient cultures had understood this, perhaps, and had built their taboos not around the stones themselves, but around the power of the spoken word. Her focus shifted dramatically. It was no longer about debunking local superstitions or proving the absence of a supernatural entity. It was about understanding the mechanism, the consequences, and the terrifying implications of a world where stories could manifest, where narrative could consume reality. The Greywood Forest was not just a place of disappearances. It was a living, breathing, story-hungry entity. The horror wasn't a monster in the woods, but the woods themselves. Or rather, the ancient heart of the woods, acting as a gateway. It was the realization that our most primal fears, when given voice and emotion, could become real, could reach out and pull us into their dark embrace. The Whispering Cairn was a mirror, reflecting our own narratives back at us, twisted into a terrifying, inescapable reality. What happens to those who are consumed? Do they become part of the stories they told, forever trapped in an endless loop of their own making? Do they inhabit the shadowy realms conjured by their narratives, mere characters in a play with no end? The answers remain elusive, lost somewhere beyond the veil, in the unseen worlds created by the Whispering Cairn. Even now, The low, multi-layered whisper track continues to be recorded by Ilara's monitoring equipment. It's a constant reminder of the cairn's ceaseless activity, a testament to the ongoing flow of narrative energy it processes. Each faint murmur is a fragment of a story, a ghost of a voice, a promise of another manifestation, another disappearance. Ilara Vance, once a detached scientist, now carries the heavy burden of this terrible knowledge. She understands the mechanism, but understanding does not equate to control. The cairn operates on principles far beyond human intervention, a natural law of narrative and manifestation. Her journey shifted from solving a mystery to comprehending an inescapable truth. Her work now involves a different kind of vigilance. Observing, documenting, and perhaps finding a way to warn others without provoking further tragedy. How do you protect people from their own stories, from the very act of sharing a terrifying tale? The answers are as elusive as the whispers in the Greywood. The Whispering Cairn remains, ancient and enigmatic, a silent monument to the power of narrative. It stands as a stark reminder that some mysteries are not meant to be solved, but understood in their terrifying complexity. The Greywood Forest continues to guard its secrets, and the line between fiction and reality remains perilously thin. What are your thoughts on the Whispering Cairn and the terrifying power of narrative? Have you ever encountered a story that felt too real, too powerful? Share your theories and experiences in the comments below. If you found this journey into the dark heart of the Greywood captivating, please like this video, subscribe to Black Pine Tales for more dark mysteries, and share this story with your friends. Until next time, stay safe in the shadows.